Greetings, friends. Reformed Stoic, back with another video. So I figured now would be a good time to reminisce on the fact that I never tried to play ball with this society. And it's a good time now because I find myself looking at trends on X and being very tempted to be like, I was talking about this years ago. I was talking about that years ago. I was talking about that years ago. Trying to, have the pick me type of stuff going on. Trying to get credit. I'm seeing people type up tweets that are like high effort and long. And it's like, wow, I could have written that. I could have gotten the credit for that. But I just want to just let it go. Because, it's not like something that's going to make you money. It's like taking a big, giant shit on like church and women and marriage and society. And it's like, you know what? Let's let this chud have his day. Let's just let this chud get the credit. Because I've bitten my tongue on a lot of these things. Because I have been very outspoken for a long time. And I've seen that, there's not necessarily a reward for it. The people that do get the rewards, you see these big channels pop up on YouTube and people are like chud posting and just like complaining, and then for some reason their channel gets huge. It just tends to not be like the most heartfelt content, but that's how the world works. And that's why I never tried to play ball with the society. And I realized it from a very young age. As a child, I was very full of life. And I feel like I definitely got it from my dad. My dad was always witty, always making people laugh. My parents liked to show me movies. When we took a trip to Mexico, I was 6 years old, my sister was a baby, and we stayed in a condo that my parents' friend owned. And I watched Liar Liar over there with Jim Carrey. And I've already talked about that in other videos, like about my influences and stuff. And I watched it like every single day that I was there. That had a huge impact on me. I liked like physical comedy, physical humor. So Wrinkles is on my drum head. And it's just really annoying. Can you just like chill? Can you just stop doing what you're doing, please? Okay. Wrinkles is relaxing. So I bring that up because I was such a harmless kid in elementary school, but I just remember a lot of teachers treating me like I was bad. Female teachers. All of the teachers were female until 6th grade. I remember it being significant in 6th grade. It's like, whoa, a man for a teacher. It's like, whoa, this is different. Men teaching boys. What is this, chaos? Anarchy? Like, it's insane. We can't have men teaching boys how to be men. What kind of a world are we living in? So, obviously, that's sarcasm. Yeah, I didn't have any male teachers until I was in 6th grade. I think I had, for a very short time, there was a male music teacher, and he got fired. And one of my friends was telling me about what happened. Like, for a punishment, if you spoke out in class, I guess he would have you, like, hold your hands behind your back and, like, lean a chair up against a table and, like, balance your chin on a table. Some weird sadistic shit. So, yeah, he got fired. Like, oh, wow, well, like, I faintly remember that guy. He was not around for very long. So, yeah, I guess he, like, had weird sadistic punishments for kids who were in trouble. But that's what men do, damn it. But, I mean, my female teacher for 2nd and 3rd grade, she would have us stare at a dot in a corner, and she would kind of watch you out of the corner of her eye, and if she saw you look away from the dot, your time would start over. It's just school in a nutshell. It's just elementary school. I gotta shout out this channel. So another person who I just feel like, man, like I could be making this content. I could be doing this. Schizodumps. That guy's channel I just find for like Gnostic soul trap content. I really, really, really enjoy. Not all of his videos are created equal. I guess some of the like, what it comes down to is I think some of the aspects of Gnosticism don't really apply as clearly to reality or soul trap. When he's talking about like archons, and it's cool to learn about the archons, but when he's talking about like normies, virtue signaling, NPC type of behavior, and just the various aspects of day-to-day life that kind of outline this soul trap prison planet, it just hits so hard. He has such solid observations, and for me, it's like not learning most of the time. It's just like hearing somebody say what I've already been thinking and saying for a long time. I'm not as good as organizing my thoughts and getting credit for it. But again, you take a deep breath and you just let the chud have his day. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's made a video about the school system and how it's just like a prison system. I mean, there's a lot of people who talk about that, and I've felt that my entire life, man. I've talked on my channel about how I was put in special ed with kids who couldn't read. I talked about that in one of my rap songs, This Life. I remember how that started. Like, I had bad handwriting, and the teacher was like looking at my paper, and she was standing up and she was speaking very loud in front of the whole class, like, "What is this? What is this garbage?" And she ripped up my paper in front of the entire class and made me cry. And it was one of those things, and this is like Narcissism 101, when you try to talk about somebody doing something horrible to you, they do the Darvo. They deny accusations, reverse victim offender. No, I didn't humiliate you in front of the entire class. You were being a bad kid. And that was in second grade. So that was actually how I got put into special ed. Because I tried to stand up for myself, saying, no, that was actually just horrible. She actually just like traumatized me in front of the entire fucking class in a very cruel, inhumane way. But I was a child and she was an adult, so I was, treated like I was a bad kid for being attacked by a narcissistic psychopath maniac. Probably the worst teacher I've ever had. It makes me cringe to think that like she kept teaching for so long. Yeah, but without getting lost in just these memories from my early childhood, because I could just go on and on, man. It went out through my entire life. I just feel like teachers were so quick to treat me like I was a bad person, and I very quickly got grouped in with the bad kids. Like, the teachers looked at me like I was a troublemaker. And it's frustrating to me because it's like what I was I was high IQ, and there was already evidence of it when I was very, very young. They pulled me to the side after I took like the CATS test, which is like one of the first standardized tests you take as a kid. They're like, Jake, you're like in the top 10%, or I scored very, very, very high. I had outstanding scores. But they insisted that I needed to be in the special ed because of my handwriting. And it really pisses me off when I talk to my parents about that, because my parents try to defend it. It's like, well, the teacher said that you, and I'm always like, maybe, just maybe, those teachers are not the infallible arbiters of truth. Maybe they're piece of shit public school teachers who I grew up to be 10 times as smart as. Like, they're just public school teachers. Who fucking cares what they said? Anyway, this is why it's hard for me to, like, kind of keep in rhythm with videos. Believe it or not, I have high standards for my content, and I just made, like, an half an hour rant that I decided I didn't want to post, and that hurts when I do that. That really throws off my rhythm. So I'm trying to get back into it. But yeah, I mean, in elementary school, I didn't play ball, and it feels like the way it starts is like I didn't do anything. You ripped up my paper in front of the entire class. It's not my fault that I had bad handwriting. And guess what? The very next couple of years, by 4th and 5th grade, we were using computers for all of our assignments, so it didn't even fucking matter. And it's just like, if you have anything about you that's real, my belief is that you will be treated like you are a bad person. If you are a boy, like, I liked to make jokes, I liked to be loud, I liked to make other kids laugh, I liked to speak up in class, and that very quickly, right out the gate, became, he's a troublemaker, he's a bad kid. So then they put me in the special ed class with these kids who can't fucking read, and what happens when you're grouped with these kids for so long? Some of them become my friends. I became friends with one of them. He lived in a trailer park. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've always been adamant about that. You know, like, my family actually lived in a trailer when I was a baby. It was called Clark's Trailer Court. And then Jackson's Trailer Court was where my friend lived. I have wholesome memories about it. Funny thing, Jackson's Trailer Court looks exactly like Sunnyvale from Trailer Park Boys. Exactly. It looks exactly the same. You know, Canada, Alaska, pretty similar. And this guy who I became friends with in special ed, his dad looked like, he reminded me of Julian. Like a big, strong guy who like always has a mixed drink and the slicked, or I don't know, he didn't have slicked hair, but yeah, so they put me in the special ed, and then I start becoming friends with the kids in there, and then the kids in there are bad kids. I mean, I really don't feel like I had a fucking shot to be a goody two-shoes. But, I mean, am I sitting here crying like, oh, I wish I could have been a goody two-shoes? No, we have a lot to get through here, and I don't want this video to be like that long, but I guess that's the point to start out with, is like, I don't think it was anything that I did. I feel like right out the gate, it's kind of like I was framed. Like, that's kind of a dramatic way to say it, but I wasn't a bad kid. I was full of joy and laughter. I liked to watch the same movies over and over and over and over again. Never-Ending Story, Dark Crystal, 101 Dalmatians. You know what was a really cool one that I think kind of contributed to who I am? The Great Mouse Detective. And I liked to memorize the lines from movies that I watched. Now, I've heard some people say that, like, The Great Mouse Detective is like the most intellectual movie that a kid could watch. I was obsessed with that movie. I watched it all the time. When I got to 4th and 5th grade, I had a very supportive teacher. On one hand, she was a raging Democrat who kind of tried to indoctrinate the class to make us all Democrats. But I don't hold it against her, because she was one of the best teachers I ever had. And she realized that I was smart. She put me in the head of all the plays. I was the Lion in The Wizard of Oz. I was Harriet Tubman's dad in the Underground Railroad. I was the Grinch in The Grinch. And I probably should have stayed in drama. You know, I don't really know why I didn't. Everybody talked about me like I was a great actor. That's just kind of how things were when you were a kid. I don't have the idea to be like, hey, Mom and Dad, I should probably do productive things, like be involved in drama, because I'm showing, like, that I'm good at it. Like, you know, there was not anything productive. There was no extracurricular anything in my life until I started learning how to play drums in 6th grade. But what happened was I memorized the entire Wizard of Oz. Just from, like, being around the play rehearsals and whatnot. I was the Lion, but I remembered every word of every line for every fucking character for the entire Wizard of Oz play. And my parents, when we were on vacation with our family, they'd be like, hey, check this out. Like, Jake, do the Wizard of Oz. And I would just sit there and recite the entire fucking Wizard of Oz. Now that's a sign that I was some sort of a creative genius. But did anybody like? No, ultimately I was still in special ed classes. I didn't really give a shit about my homework. I'm not saying I got bad grades. There was a couple of semesters like in middle school where I got straight A's and B's. But no, I was not like teacher's pet, all A's all the fucking time. I was very average for the most part in terms of my grades. Because who fucking cares about school? I wanted to play video games. I wanted to play with my friends. I was doing overnights every single weekend by the time I was in like second and third grade. And yeah, I mean, some of my best memories is doing that. Personally, if I had children, if I ever have children, I won't allow them to do overnights for the most part. Maybe like on birthdays or special occasions, but I like to call it Lord of the Flies. You know, unsupervised children. You never know what's going to happen. Like, hey, check this out. I stole my dad's alcohol. Or, hey, look, there's a dead body. Or there's some fucking weird kid who tries to, like, do some homo blah, blah, blah stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, no offense. It's unsupervised children, ultimately, is what it comes down to. So... yeah, and, oh my gosh, this has really just become a complete rant. But what it is like, eventually you get to, like, middle school. I had some really weird friends in, like, 8th grade. It was the only time I ever had a girlfriend. You know, she bleached my hair, and I had dyed black hair and then bleached hair. Probably part of the reason I fucking went bald. Because I had tried to dye it over and over and over so many times to fix it. I probably should have just fucking shaved my head and bit the bullet. But I couldn't even comprehend living with being bald back then. Holy shit. Holy shit. But it's just weird how life just kind of pushed me down this path of like being this hoodlum kid. It gets to a point where the teachers look at me as like, oh, there's Jake. He hangs out with all the bad kids. He's one of the bad kids. And the reality is like I was high IQ and multi-talented, and I showed early signs of being a multi-talented genius. And, yeah, I do have some resentment about it, because the public school mentality just seems to be like, if you're a boy who smiles and laughs and is outgoing and likes to joke around and speak up, you get labeled a bad kid, and then you get punished, and then you get put in these classes with other bad kids, and then you're around bad kids, and you're young, so you can't think, oh wow, now I'm surrounded by bad kids, and people are gonna see me as bad, and I'm supposed to be good, and you have no fucking idea what's going on, and so I mean, I could keep like fumbling through school because it really kind of just kept being like that. And yeah, this whole like bad kid thing, I didn't start smoking weed or partying until I was a junior in high school. But it's weird because there are so many kids who were already partying in middle school. Some of them all the way back to 6th grade were smoking weed. But it's just like, even though on some level I was a goody two-shoes for a long time, it really didn't take long for it to feel like I was just always there. It's like it was my destiny. It's like it was my fate. It's like, you're a bad kid. You're supposed to drink and smoke and party with all the other bad kids. So everybody can virtue signal about how fucking bad you are, including your parents. Because the only input my parents had on my life for my last 2 years of high school was trying to bust me smoking weed and drinking. That's all it was. My last 2 years of high school, I'm supposed to be like coming up with plans for my life and figuring out what I'm going to do, how I'm going to support myself, how I'm going to be a success. All it was cat and mouse. I smell weed. Did you sneak out last night? They talked about this party in the paper. Were you there? And I'm not saying I shouldn't have gotten in trouble for partying, but that was all it was. It was just cat and mouse with my parents for my last 2 years of high school. And yeah, I guess what I'm trying to relay here is that I don't feel like I chose any of it. And now, at 35, I'm like, well, yeah, my hometown was a fucking shithole. And I wish I didn't grow up there. And that's pretty much the bottom line, is like, there was all this evidence. Like, I played drums, I was an actor, I had high scores on the CATS test. But it's like all of these adults around me just so badly. He's a bad kid. His handwriting's bad. Like, they just really didn't want anything good for me. They didn't want me to, like, reach any of my potential in fucking anything. And yeah, at a certain point, it all became drums. It all became music and drums. But in reality, I was good at a lot of things. I was, like, intellectually just smart and talented and capable. But yeah, like, drumming was what it all kind of everybody agreed on. That was like an acceptable thing for society. Like, okay, like, you're not going to say that he's smart because he's a good drummer, especially because I'm young and I'm going to be into Blink-182 and pop punk and emo, and it's like, nobody really talks about musicians like they're smart. So, like, that was acceptable for me to be good at drums. But it's very obviously when my parents pulled the plug on Berklee, and then the mental hospital happened, which was whatever. I got in an argument with my mom. We were talking to the same psychologist. She said some shit that I said throughout the summer to that psychologist all at once, took it out of context to get me Baker's acted. The more time that goes on with that, it's like, every person I've talked to who's been through that experience, most of them these days say that they have to stay for like a month. It's very common to get, like, you have the 72-hour hold, and then you go to court, and if you lose your case, then you have to stay for like a month or whatever. I only stayed for 3 days. So when people are like, oh, he was in a mental hospital, it's fucking 72-hour hold. What Steve-O said to Joe Rogan, if you've never been under 72-hour hold, you ain't shit. It's so, yeah, and that's just another thing. Oh, he was in a mental hospital. And then everybody in my hometown gossiped about that, just like they gossiped about me quitting the boat. You ever play like an on-rails shooter game? They're popular in arcades. Like, you don't press forward or left or right. You have the gun, and your character just automatically walks forward and goes through the level. That's what my life feels like an on-rails shooter. And, you know, I can, like, control the torso and where I look, but the direction that my life goes is like, wow, like, special ed, bad kids, partying, 72-hour hold, and the people are like, wow, he's in special ed. Oh, he's hanging out with bad kids. He's in the mental hospital. And it's like, I just don't feel like I was in control of any of it. And I tried my best at the time. I tried my best. And what happened was, like, my parents pulled the plug and go into Berklee College of Music. I go home and work in a moving company all summer. I get fucking, like, friend-zoned, the worst I've ever been in my life with this chick I was going for. Seemed like things were going all right. And then she goes on a month-long vacation. And I was simping for her in, like, messages the whole fucking month. And by the time she got there, she's like, wow, this guy's pathetic. I'm just going to, like, psychologically torture him. And it was, like, at the very fucking end of that summer, like 2 weeks before I was going to go back to Boston. And part of what my mom said that, like, egged on the fight is like, I don't want you to go back to Boston. And I just had the worst summer of my entire life. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do here? Said something that she used against me. But yeah, so the point is, like, most people that I've talked to who have been to mental hospitals, they lose the case and they stay there for like a month. The fact that I won my case and it was removed from my record and I was only there for 72 hours, it pretty much means, from my knowledge of mental hospitals, I'm not trying to cope, it pretty much means that I shouldn't have even fucking been there. Just like I shouldn't have been in fucking special ed. Just like I shouldn't have been friends with any of those people in special ed. Just like I shouldn't have fucking grown up in Kodiak, Alaska. On rails, bro. I'm living this on rails life, and I'm trying to do the best I can. So yeah, so then I go to Boston, and what it was is like when my parents pulled the plug on music school, yeah, they're trying to push really hard for me to go back to Kodiak. It's like, no, but I'm trying to make connections and do things with music, and I'm good, and like people know who I am, and I'm making connections over here, and like there's no fucking reason to be in Kodiak. And I just saw that after that probably the shittiest summer of my life. I don't know, man. Maybe shittiest summer of my life, but probably not the shittiest moments of my life. But it was a doozy. So then, I know these people playing metal music in Boston, and I was lucky on some level. I mean, arguably, I could say that the whole metal house I lived in and the metal bands I played in was all a fucking waste of time. Pro tip, do not go to an expensive music school like Berklee College of Music to play metal. Don't do it. Stop. Get some help. Don't do it. But I mean, good luck making money playing music at all. But I'm just saying, I had made some friends in metal music while I was going to Berklee. And at the beginning of that summer, right before I went home, 2011, by the way, for that shitty mental hospital finale summer, they're like, hey man, we're thinking about like getting a house together with a bunch of metal musicians and starting a bunch of metal bands. Are you in? So I'm really lucky that they proposed that before that summer, because that was the only thing keeping me in Boston. I think it's safe to say if I didn't have that going on, Boston would have been done. And I don't even know what the fuck I would have did from that point. So now looking back, it was not smart to tell people in Boston that my parents put me in a mental hospital. But I didn't have that kind of a mind where it's like, oh, you don't want to say this, you don't want to say that, let's pretend. And I didn't have that like manipulator mind. I was always very good-hearted and honest and not manipulative and wore my heart on my sleeve. Like I was just somebody who was born to be fucked over and manipulated. But a lot of the point of this video is like how I was manipulated was like I'm set up to be this bad person. And when somebody creates a hit piece, oh, he was in special ed, and he got in trouble with the teachers, and he was a bad kid, and he did drugs, and he went to the mental hospital. Wow. And he dropped out of music school. And I've heard people try to... Like, when I went through all these fucking smear campaigns, dude, people... It really bothered them. Like, they're looking through my resume, trying to figure out how to smear me. It's like, oh, wow, 2 years at Berklee College of Music. They had to, like, lie and try to say that, like, oh, he was only there for 6 months and he failed out. And people get really uncomfortable when they're trying to, like, throw you in the trash and they're trying to lie about you. They get really uncomfortable when any part of your life looks good in any way, shape, or form. And I have really encountered so many people like that. They don't want me to have anything. Nothing. Can't have anything. And it got to a point later in life where I'm like, hey man, I'm high IQ, I'm multi-talented, I've read a lot of books. I'm trying to like speak up for what I got going on. Because people are trying to fucking shove me in the trash. And then they get really mad, like, oh, wow, look at the narcissist. You're calling other people a narcissist. Like, but bro, you're trying to roast me for being short and bald and failing with women and dropping out of school. I'm just trying to say, like, I got some positive shit going on. They don't want me to have fucking anything, man. This smear campaign shit, I think it started ever since I was fucking born. And I have this weird relationship with the Chosen Ones videos where it's like, I get it. I know what people hear. It's like, oh, everybody's bad and a narcissistic demon, and you're an angel, and you're good, and God chose you, and it sounds cheesy, and it can sound like cope, and it can probably be like gassing up some really fucking like delusional people who are maybe even narcissists themselves. But I can honest to God tell you, I feel like I was set up ever since I was a fucking child. And I think about what I did to get there. Smiling really big, laughing, enjoying cartoons and Jim Carrey movies, and speaking up in class and wanting to make friends. I was just innocent and full of joy, man. I posted that video with the baby elephant. I'm like, man, that baby elephant reminds me of me. And it really does. Partially because the baby elephants are like kind of ugly, but it has no fucking idea that it's ugly. And I mean, in nature, it's whatever, they're fucking elephants. And I don't even think I'm ugly. Like, nobody thought I was ugly when I was a fucking little kid. But I don't know, man. Maybe I went bald because, like, of stress. Because of all the shit that I dealt with growing up. Not that it even fucking matters at this point, you know. I don't give a shit that I'm bald. I don't give a shit that I'm short. I don't give a shit about anything. And the point when it became obvious that I really wasn't going to play ball with society, because I had to try to make it in Boston. So I did work jobs there. You know, I worked at an ice cream shop. I was a busboy at this pizza joint. Then I was a busboy at like a Korean barbecue. Then I tried some different shit. I tried to be the fucking sign flipper at Liberty Mutual. That was absolutely fucking humiliating. Some big, tall, like, what is it called? Like CPA, like finance bro came up to me and I was walking home. He's like, hey, psst, hey, how much do you make? How much do you make? He wanted to like mock me for how much more money he made than me. And then somebody I knew from Berkeley walked by while I was doing that. He was like, hey, Jake. And he had like a smug smile. Like, dude, I started seeing like the ugliness in people. I'd always seen the ugliness in people. But when I was like struggling in Boston so I could play in these fucking metal bands that didn't make me a fucking cent, and they're like bitching to me about money. Like, oh, you shouldn't have spent your money like that when you were fishing in Kodiak. Like, dude, I have a lot of resentment towards metal music because I gave it everything I had and it gave me nothing. And I worked shit jobs and they never said thank you for my drumming. And a lot of people came up to me after the shows and said I was the best member in the band. It happened like all the fucking time. Pretty much everybody in our house told me I was the best member in the band. Everybody who was close to me said I was too good to play in the band I was playing in, and they were taking advantage of me. But, wow. 32 minutes. Boy, oh boy. After that was all said and done, my parents didn't force me to move to their vacation home in Vegas. They didn't force me to give up on Boston. But after having to go back to Kodiak to make money because of the tour, I ran out of money. That was the summer that I quit the boat. Everybody in Kodiak, when I quit that boat, people that, like, I didn't even fucking know knew who I was. Were like, oh, I heard you quit the boat. And then they, like, turned their back on me. Like, they wanted something over me, bro. They so desperately wanted to have something over me. I was just like, man, why can't everybody just mind their own fucking business? Like, there's so many people who got really drunk and didn't fucking show up for their boats. One guy skipped out on a boat and lived in somebody's shed and like shit in a bucket and did heroin. I mean, so what? I quit a fucking boat, dude. The guy who ran that boat, he lost his finger like the next year. You think I want to lose my fucking finger? Never play drums again? Be fucking like, what's that, Def Leppard drummer trying to impress people who will never, ever, ever, ever respect me, dude. So this became like just a full-on fucking vent over my life. But yeah, finishing out my thoughts, 2013 was, I had to go back to Kodiak. Like, I'm begging my parents for money on the phone when I'm on tour. They're like, okay, but you have to come back to Kodiak and work this summer. And that's when I quit the boat, and that's when that took major fucking damage to my reputation. And then I go back to Boston for like 3 months and then run out of money again. Well, I got some work for you in Kodiak. I come to Kodiak again. And then my roommates were starting to get pissed off at me. When I came back, my drum set was all fucked up. Like, the heads were broken and the cymbals broken. And my roommates were all starting to kind of like fucking normie gang up on me because I left so much. So, yeah. My parents were putting a lot of fucking pressure on me financially because I couldn't make ends meet over there. But I was just burnt out, man. I was tired of my bands that didn't fucking appreciate me. All while not being the intellectual that you see before you today. Like, I couldn't fucking crunch the numbers. I was a fucking pothead. I was a borderline alcoholic. Everybody drank. Everybody smoked fucking weed. Every now and then there was shrooms. All these fucking drugs and alcohol and weed up in my head, and I'm living this life. And what's interesting is a lot of it was coming out in the music I was writing. Early lucid hip-hop, way back in like 2013. You know, those songs are very special to me because, you know, they're not necessarily like good. Some people think they're like, they show my creativity and it shows that I had some talent. You know, the production is not good, but yeah, interesting. Like some of the lyrics on my really early songs, like You Live in a Cave for the Vampire Psychics, I wrote that in 2012. Now, I had read the Satanic Bible, and that's where I got that term from, but man, that lyric means a lot to me now, because it's like, yeah, Kodiak is a fucking cave for the Vampire Psychics, 100%. And a lot of people, I could see they were getting very uncomfortable when I was putting out these songs. They knew what it meant. I didn't. I didn't know what the songs I was writing meant, because it was like leaking out of my subconscious into the music. Because I'm telling you, man, like, me reading a lot of books and becoming an intellectual, that did not come until Vegas. And that did not come until I was done playing ball with society. So finishing up my thoughts, my parents did not force me to leave Boston behind. I was done. And they were putting a lot of fucking pressure on me, and I gave in. And I basically told my mom that I was willing to get on antidepressants. Thank God I had the best psychologist that I had ever had when I first got to Vegas. I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. My mom pretty much just says she wants me on antidepressants, so whatever, put me on antidepressants. He's like, your mom, huh? Tell me about your mom. And then my mom was standing outside after one of the sessions, like, oh, he really, how about you just put him on antidepressants? He's like, no, I don't think he needs them. That was the guy that was telling me about the autism diet. Remember in my last video, hinty, hinty, hint, hint, he just recommended, like, no, you don't need that shit. If you really want to do that, you can go check yourself into a mental hospital and get examined. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm all set on that. But yeah, he's saying, I don't know, try a gluten-free diet, see what that does for you. And I tried it for a while, you know, fucking hamburgers with lettuce instead of buns and shit. But so that was cool. That guy was cool. You know, I was defeated. Fuck it. I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm ready for something new. And you know what happened in Vegas? When my mom was staying there, when I was first moving there, I stayed up really late one night and I listened to the Marshall Mathers LP all the way through. And I was like, I want to be a rapper. And I was already rapping, but I was like, I tried with the drumming and the metal, which is stupid. I mean, really, I probably should have just tried to be a professional drummer because I have those kind of skills. I always have. But I was like, no, I tried with the drumming. Now I want to try with the rap. Now I really want to try to go all the way with the rap. I started making a song every single day in 2014. I met this boxer black guy who like took me up into the hood in Maryland Parkway, and I was trying, you know. And then I did that development deal, which I don't even want to get into that. But that was around the time that I decided I'm not going to play ball with society anymore, 2014. And that's around the time that I started reading books. It started with, I had this big Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like the first 5 books or whatever. I only read the first one. But if you're like, I want to start reading, read the first Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The chapters are very short. It's very easy to read, funny. It'll make you feel like, hey, I'm doing it. I'm reading a book, and I remember it, and I enjoy it. And the rest is history, man. You know? Yeah, fuck. Like, 2014, 2015, 2016 was all chewed up in that development deal. It spits out in 2017 when I threatened to sue, and they give me my video, and the audio quality sucks. They never even professionally mixed the beat. The beat was double sold. Some other asshole made a song over the same beat. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck am I going to do now? So then I go to UNLV in 2017, fall semester. That was fucking brutal. I went on one date. Haven't been on a date since. Really lonely and isolated all 2018, and at the end of 2018, near the end of the winter semester around Thanksgiving, that's when I started the Reformed Stoic channel. It was originally called the Perennial Stoic, but I put this same GoPro I'm using now in front of the fireplace, pointed at the fireplace, and I just rant about life. Because I remember watching other people's content and thinking, I'll bet I could do this. Like, it's really impressive how these guys, like, have a stream of consciousness and share their thoughts. I'll bet I could do this. And, the rest from Reformed Stoic on, I feel like it's pretty fresh in all of our minds. So I didn't even really talk specifically about why I didn't play ball with society, but I was done by 2014, man. I feel like I was set up from birth, pretty much. And I was always a good kid. And it wasn't until later in life when it started to become evident, damn, like, being short and bald actually is a big fucking deal. Which I already knew in high school, but everybody around me gaslit the fucking shit out of me. Which is part of why the red pill, it just made so much sense to me. And the B pill as well. But I feel like from that little variant of my life story, I've told that a lot of my life story from a lot of different angles. But I just feel like that story embodies, like, why I didn't want to play ball with society. And the point that I stopped playing ball with society, when I refused to participate, and I did it completely my way, and I got into the occult, and I wrote songs, and I read a bunch of books, that is how I became an intellectual. And if I would have played ball with society, I never would have been one. I never would have read. I never would have become deep. It was a trade-off. Like, I'm not going to play by the world's rules anymore because I can tell that the rules are stacked against me. That's how I learned everything I know. And relevant to the discussions that are happening now, people are going off on the Orthodox Church right now. Some woman who was very promiscuous just wrote an article about, how men bad. I get tired of, like, being exhaustive about these details. There's so many other guys doing it now. I figure I'll just retweet what they said. I'll retweet their tweet. Let the chuds get some. I'm gonna get mine. I'm finding my place. I feel like this is kind of like a retrospect before MOGGY Jr. drops. Just a little bit reminder of, like, what I've been through and how I got here and how I became who I am. But I look at the stuff, like the 70% of men on Hinge have never had a date, 63% of men single, only 32% of women, and we're talking 1929, 52% of women going for 10% of men on dating apps. I mean, all of this discussion that I've been taking part in since, like, 2018, the birth of my channel, it's come to a head, and it's just shown that more or less the red pill is correct about everything. And I think, what if I would have played ball with society this entire time? Would I have figured out how to make a lot of money? Would have I found a loyal woman? Would have I made it? It's really time to just think, like, did I fuck up my life, or am I glad that I lived the way that I lived? I'm glad that I lived the way that I lived. I'm seeing that a lot of people did play ball with society, and it did not pay off for them. I've known for a very long time that some force or people or something was just forcing me in this direction where I was bound to be tarred and feathered and labeled a bad person and to fail. And I will say, in my occult times before I got into Christianity, I discovered a variant of the left-hand path. And even though I kind of left that behind to get into theology, I feel like what I've lived is really individualism and the left-hand path. Like, I feel like I am an embodiment of the left-hand path. I took all the energy and put it into me to individuate and to become something. Some people can be dramatic and be like, to become a god. Like, no, I'm just a fucking Spurg burger in paradise is what I am. I'm not anything fucking close to a god. That's why I like Gnosticism and like Christian mysticism better than left-hand path, because I think left-hand path is just like a really edgy packaging. I'm becoming a god. Like, no, that's not what's going on. But I do feel like my life story from 2014 on embodies the left-hand path, and I'm happy with the results. I stopped giving the world my energy because I've known from a very young age that the world does not respect my energy. It doesn't respect me. It's not going to allow me to be who I really was. Who was I really when I was a kid? Just loving, fun, smiles, laughs. I'm the kind of kid who just la la la, and like deers come up and lick my hands and birds land on my shoulders and I touch a plant that's dying and it fucking comes back to life. I was full of life and goodness and happiness and love. I was a fucking joy to be around, and the world just fucking strangled it out of me, bro. And at a certain point, even though I didn't fucking understand yet, I was like, nah, I don't care. I don't care if this is what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do what I want to do for me, because nobody's looking out for me. And they're like, oh, but you're going to get the Twinkie at the end of the stick if you do what we say. Well, here we are in 2026. How does that Twinkie taste? And the last thing I would ever want to do is mock good guys who tried to play ball with the society. It's sad. It's a tragedy. And you still have time to make it. And I might not make it. But it's safe to say this is one of the last videos I'm going to put out before Moggy Jr. drops a music video. Still going to be a little bit, we'll say like 2 weeks or so, but we're getting there. But this is who I am, man, and I went all in, and I did not play ball with society, and something tells me that I made the right choice. So I'll leave you guys with that. It's a really long fucking video. This is who I am. I make really long videos. Get cozy, watch it in 2 parts, do what you gotta do. God bless, guys. See you for the next one. Peace out.